Tim. Meg.
Hey, Charlie.
You guys want to go fishing? Come on. Welcome to another episode of Travels with Charlie, Vermont Politics in Real Life. And we're in rural Vermont today discussing Chittenden County versus rural Vermont. And my guests are from Chittenden County, Senator Tim Ashe, along with Meg Hansen from the YCN network. She's the host of Dialogues with Meg Hansen. Thank you both for being with me today. And we're going to do a little fishing here and have a little conversation too about the disparity, the differences between much of rural Vermont and Chittenden County. Let me ask both of you first, and specifically you, Tim, is there a disproportionate amount of power, political power in Chittenden County?
I'm not sure about political power. I think that the economy of northwestern Vermont, which is not just Chittenden, but also Franklin County, it's undeniable that they have a strength and resilience, whereas many of the other counties, more rural counties, are more vulnerable, especially, let's say, if one large employer closes, it can have a huge ripple effect on a community. The issue is really about how we marry the interests of Chittenden County and Franklin County with the rest of the state, because really Chittenden County succeeds in part because of rural Vermont.
Sure.
Rural Vermont, its future is largely dependent on some of the current economic centers like Burlington, St. Albans, South Burlington, and so on. So Chittenden County itself has a lot of people living relatively rural lives.
Sure.
Sometimes it's a distinction which is more blurry than it at first seems.
But wouldn't you agree, Meg, that outside of Burlington specifically, it seems that in a lot of the rural areas, there's a feeling that my voice isn't being heard?
I agree. I like what Senator Ashe said about bringing together, and this bridge here is a wonderful metaphor to come together when you look at Northwest Vermont and the rest. I think the goal should really be to foster urban-rural solidarity. So I think that before we can talk about how can we bridge the divide between urban and rural, we should understand, or at least we should establish, a shared standard of value. And by that I mean, what is the value, what is the measure by which we assess whether a policy or an idea is good or bad? When it comes to the rest of Vermont, our standard of value, and I'm positioning myself here as a voice for rural Vermont, a representative. I think our standard of value is to maximize human flourishing, where what we're trying to do is that all Vermonters should be able to flourish, to thrive, to prosper mentally, physically, emotionally, socially, economically. So unless we can actually agree that we have a shared standard of value, I think we'll just keep talking past each other and we won't be able to bridge the divide.
Tim, you were lead sponsor S11. That was the limiting Senate districts in Vermont to 3 or fewer.
Yeah.
As you know, Chittenden County has 6 Senate seats. I think it's the largest in the country, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And you actually called to change that.
Right now, if you live in Bolton, you've got 6 senators representing you. And so you punch above your weight a little bit in terms of representation. If and when we break up the district, because the law did pass, it will be more likely they'll have 2 or 3 people who are primarily focused on their interests. But my belief is that the representation should be much closer to the people than it is with this 6-person district. I'll tell you, the worst thing I hear as someone who really tries to represent people well and consistently, I'll meet someone in a town and they'll say, oh, I feel like how do I know your name? And I'll say, well, I'm in the state Senate, you might have seen. And they say, oh, I think I voted for you. Yeah. You know how heartbreaking that is after all the effort I put in to hear someone say, I think I voted for you? So I don't think it should be like that. I think people should really have a much clearer sense of who it is that represents them and what they're advocating for so they can hold them accountable. But I think it'll shine a little bit more light on the diversity of Chittenden County when it is broken up.
I think I got a bite. I was using for bait today.
Not another minnow, is it?
Oh no. What the heck? I don't think that's the legal limit. I gotta throw it back. It's not big enough. See what else we can catch here today. Let's talk about some of the things that I think impact rural versus urban differently in some of the some of the legislation that's been proposed and will probably be coming up in the next legislative session. Number one, a gas tax, carbon tax, however you want to call it. If you live right within Burlington or within Chittenden County, you don't have to travel quite as far. Somebody that's out in an area like this, that's something, again, that, you know, the voice outside of the urban areas really needs to be heard.
Well, I agree, but you know, this particular issue around carbon taxes and efforts to fight climate change are particularly susceptible to people creating divisions right out of the gates to prevent action for either ideological reasons or just plain political reasons.
Well, it is a tax. I mean, it's a tax.
But there's
swallow.
But there's no proposal that I'm aware of that is being taken up that is a gas tax, and yet. The last two elections, one party has accused certain legislators of supporting one that didn't even exist. The real question is, do we want to do something to fight climate change? And I think most people in Vermont believe the answer is yes. How to do it becomes the challenge.
Right.
To me, some of the oversimplification that occurs across the political spectrum is the belief that the immediate solution is everyone will be in an electric car. And I think we know that's not happening. You know, there'll be more of them.
Well, maybe not immediately, but
over time there will be more. But in
know.
the meantime, if you don't have a lot of money, you're not buying a Tesla.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we've been trying to do, and we started this last year, is put money to help low-income people get into just plain more efficient vehicles. Yeah. Get them into something that saves them money while also being better for the environment.
I'm just taking it all in, and this is what I meant in the beginning, which is why I wanted to clarify the two different standards of value. If your goal is I want to minimize human impact on the environment, then you're casting human beings as polluter parasites. Any impact that human beings have on the environment is then intrinsically immoral and bad. And so then if that is your standard of value, climate change will be your number one priority. However, if you move into maximizing human flourishing and you understand that human beings survive and can only hope to thrive by impacting the environment. I mean, we use our technology and creativity to take what is naturally a dangerous, naturally a dirty climate, and we make it safe and healthy for ourselves. If we understand that, then we can stop demonizing the fact that we are emitting carbon dioxide, so we know it was 0.3%, it's become 0.4%. So to the extent to which that increase and any other future increase hurts human beings, that should be our number one priority, and then we can look at solutions and then we can move forward. Now, this does not mean that we want to pillage and pollute the place. No, right? Because you want to preserve air quality, soil quality, water quality. That is integral to human flourishing. If that is your standard of value, then the conversation that we would be having will be completely different.
Oh, I got another bite. Oh, this could be the big one. Oh man, it's putting up a fight.
I don't know how you do it, Charlie.
Whoa. I'm not exactly sure what kind of fish that is.
Well, when you put your beef jerky on it, I thought you'd pull up something weird.
We'll throw that back in too.
Poor thing.
What are we doing to attract more people to rural Vermont? It seems again that when people think of moving to a state, it seems like a lot of them want to, because that's where all the action is, that's where the jobs are. How can we attract more people to rural Vermont? Obviously, we're all going to benefit from that.
Well, a couple of things, and none of these are panaceas. They're strategies to try to help. I know the state has been dedicating more of its resources around economic development and making sure proactively that it's being distributed around the state. We're also trying to promote the things that what rural Vermont has to offer, which urban Vermont doesn't, which is the outdoor and recreational economy and tourism. And we're really trying to support people who are going into those businesses and, frankly, the diversification of forest and agriculture lands to make sure that the lifestyle and the culture that has prevailed for hundreds of years doesn't just disappear. Those are all hard things. Again, we're kind of going upstream, but those are some of the things we have to do more of and get better at.
When it comes to Vermont, are we looking at Vermont as a tourist destination where we want to maximize services, or are we looking at it as a place where we can have robust industry? And I think that if we had policies that were focused on giving a strong engine to Vermont, not just in terms of, outdoors. Well, that's also very good, but outdoors, but also reviving all these things that were actually very important part of Vermont. If we can do that, if we can get that mindset, then, there's no reason why we should not do well.
Well, we didn't do very well on our fishing trip here today and caught a license plate in a stuffed animal, but this is part of the program where I like to give my guests a magic wand, and you can wave it. You can do anything you'd like. You get one wish with it. Wish for that Tesla that you've always wanted. Meg, I'll give you the wand
Ladies first.
Ladies first. Go ahead.
So then I'm gonna wave the magic wand, and I'm going to wish that everybody in power, so whether they're legislators, administrators, media, cultural influencers, I would want all people in Vermont who have any position of power to agree that our standard of value should be to maximize human flourishing. But we can't have a conversation, we can't have policy that moves in that direction unless we can all get on the same page with that shared value. So I'll do that with the wand and get everybody to agree with that.
There you go, wave it. Tim?
Well, I'm going to start, you're the one who wants the Tesla.
Oh, I'd love one.
Trying to pass it off as me is a cruel joke. I wish, if I had a magic wand, looking ahead, what I would really like is for every young person in Vermont, this is my magic wand moment for today, every single young person in high school to have an opportunity to do some kind of work or service in the summer, whether their family has connections, whether their family has money, doesn't matter, but so that everyone felt some buy-in to the state of Vermont and was developing some basic skills, something that would help them transition into adulthood.
I want to thank both of my guests today for being with me. Meg Hansen. Meg, thank you. Dialogues with Meg Hansen on the YCN Network. And of course, Senator Tim Ashe from Chittenden County, Senate Pro Tem. And thank you both for being here today, and I will see you in my travels.
Catch up with the news, get your point of view. I want to hear what unravels. I'll see you in my travels, and I'll be hanging round, covering lots of ground. If you'd be so kind to share what's on your mind.